in Scotland, and over 400 private jets, along with their entourages, and in some cases their armored cars, flown down in military jets, to have a big meeting to tell us as citizens that we have to reduce our carbon footprint. Meanwhile, they're gallivanting all around in private jets on taxpayers' dime to discuss these matters. They couldn't have a Zoom meeting? I don't understand. We've been talking about Zoom meetings forever. I mean, they even did like parliamentary Zoom meetings. So I don't understand how them going to Scotland in 500 private jets was a legitimate reason to discuss lowering our carbon footprint. Meanwhile, Trudeau decided to throw Alberta and Canada under the bus at the exact same time. Ridiculous. Started thinking about a lot of stuff that was going on in the last week, and something that crossed my mind that I thought was pretty profound and I'd like to share with you is the fact that all of these, it seems very odd to me that the government officials and the government themselves have the only smart people in the world. They are the only ones that employ intelligent people, apparently, because anybody else who has anything to say that doesn't work for the government is a crackpot. I find that very hard to believe, but at the same time, they're going to try to make you believe it. Another thing, anyone see the news this morning about what happened in New Brunswick? This is very important news for us all. Yeah, see, you guys are getting it. So they just declared, the Labour Board, the union for CN Rail kicked up a fuss, and a couple other unions for public workers associations and stuff like that kicked up a fuss, and they went and got a lawyer on the Labour Board, and they have presented the government with a cease and desist order on all mandates for public workers. Woo! Now that's a win. I think that's going to set the precedence for all of the countries, or all of the provinces, right straight across the country. And it has to. Because if they can't make their own public workers take this jab, how can they make anybody else? There's so much going on and so much misconception that, you know, I've had a lot of people come to me and tell me, Chris, I'm going to lose my job. And I'm like, everyone faces the same thing. The only thing that's going to stop this is if we all stand together. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to stop this. And we're here today. We were here last Saturday. We were here the Saturday before. And there was a couple more before that I didn't even make it to, but I wanted to be at. I was in Labrador working at the time. And I did say that when I made it home, I would be here. So here I am. I brought somebody very special with me today. I brought my little boy. He's 11 years old. And that's the reason why I'm here. Anybody else following the news real close and see that Pfizer just asked for, they wanted to make sure that they got the vaccine for the 5 to 11-year-olds on the market. Because, you know, more people taking the vax, more money Pfizer makes. I just read that Pfizer made over $29 billion in the third quarter of this year. $29 billion. But they still want more. Like George Carlin said, they need your money. They always need your money. And so now the news is stating that most people that are infected with COVID-19 right now in Canada are 5 to 11-year-olds, conveniently enough. Yeah, I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. If you're paying attention, it's all right there at your fingertips and you can find it. And a lot of people, I don't understand why they're either not paying attention or just don't care. I mean, I work in a camp with over 200 people in the camp, and probably 70% of them say, I don't follow politics, I don't care. But it's not about politics. The political class is what made this about politics. This is about personal choice, and this is about freedom to choose. This is about freedom of your conscience. If they don't know and can't, they have lost their moral compass, big time. I agree. They might have had one at some point, but let's say they don't have one now. And they're making decisions for you or I totally out of reality. Like, it's just not a reality that they can even make these decisions, but they think they can. They think they're the ruling class, but they're the political class. They forget that it's us that voted them into power. They represent the constituents. They don't represent themselves or public interest groups, although they're being lobbied to. And that's the reason why we all know that this is about money and nothing else. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I'm good at following information and finding out what's true and what's not. I've been down a lot of rabbit holes, and there's a lot of BS out there, and you gotta decipher it yourself, what's BS and what's truth. But one thing we all know, everybody here knows that's true, is if you feel like something's wrong, something's wrong. Right? And I felt that something's been wrong for a long time. The last 2 years, nothing added up. Nothing made any sense. Double talk, backpedaling, the goalposts keep shifting. They got the carrot on a stick, and you're chasing it. And it'll always shift, and the goalposts will always change. The more that you do, the more that they want. They want you to comply. But we're not going to comply. We're sick of complying. I'm sick of watching my friends comply and then feel like their heart's broken because they've done something that's completely against what they believe in. There's a lot of religious people here, and I respect that 100%. I myself, I'm not a practicing Christian, but I'm very spiritual. I believe there's something greater. I have to. If I didn't, I'd be ignorant. They say ignorance is bliss, but this is one time we can't afford to be ignorant.
Form you in church, we'll follow you. Come on, Chris.
I'm wearing my poppy today because of many reasons. The freedom that I have here right now to stand up on this microphone is because of the people that gave the ultimate and paid the ultimate price for us to be here right now. And then you have people like a doctor here in town that wrote on his Facebook page that if you're not vaccinated, you're selfish and you should not wear a poppy. My friend who is, my cousin and my cousin's wife, they're both veterans. And she wrote on his wall, as a veteran, she said, I believe you don't understand what the poppy represents, and maybe it's you that shouldn't wear the poppy.
Yeah!
You know, there's so much to say, and there's so much information just rattling around in my head, and it's hard to decipher some of it sometimes. And when you're having conversations with people one-on-one, I find that that's the best time it comes out. I had a conversation with a lady last night who said to me, come on, it's only a vaccine. We had vaccines when we were kids. I'm like, yeah, sure we did. I said, but those were traditional vaccines. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, these vaccines, these new ones, they had to change. The government had to change the definition of what a vaccination is just so that the COVID-19 jab met the criteria. That alone should draw red flags. And they did it twice, like this gentleman just said. They have changed everything that they don't like that goes against the official narrative. They will change it to fit their official narrative every time. And if there's no pushback, they'll do whatever they want. And we've seen that that's what they're doing. And they're doing it to us all the time. They have tricked private businesses into believing that they had to mandate this jab for their workers, which is a bunch of BS. Private businesses have the right, of all businesses, more so even than public businesses, public organizations and public work sectors and stuff, they have the right to say whatever, because it's their private business, hence private business. If I want someone to work for me who's not vaccinated, that's my choice. It's my business. I pay taxes to you to do your job, so you do your job and let me do mine. And I think that, a lot of people tried to jump ahead of the gun and decided that they would do this ahead of the game because they believed that that was the right thing to do because they were told it was the right thing to do. But again, if you feel like something's wrong, then it's wrong. And I don't understand why so many people are not understanding that. It blows my mind. It's unfathomable that you could be, treated in such a way. I've been banned off Facebook for the last 16 days, so I'm just an observer. But it's good because it gave me time to reflect. And I just read the comments and I'm like, wow, people are just so mean over this. People are losing their minds. I mean, they've pitted us against each other, neighbor against neighbor, friend against friend, family against family, over a jab that, like I say, the government themselves had to change the definition just so that this jab would meet the criteria of a vaccination. And we're being played off each other. That's what's happening. I mean, there's no question about it. And so this lady looked at me, and when she said that this was, just a vaccine like any other vaccine, and I said, no, it's not. I said, this is a new vaccine. I said, it's not even really a vaccine. Most immunologists will say it's gene therapy. Because what this vaccine actually does, for those who don't know, most people here likely know, but the mRNA vaccine, from what I understand, sends messenger instructions via RNA to your body, to your cells, to produce a protein that it's never produced before, which is the same protein found in COVID-19, the spike 9 protein. So if that's the case, then that is gene therapy, because your body's doing something it's never done before, and you're getting instructions sent to your body to do it. And like I said last time, there's only one other thing in this world that has the exact same delivery system, and that's HIV. HIV uses mRNA to send messenger instructions via RNA to your cells to produce the protein. So Dr. Brian Bridle, he's an immunologist from the University of Guelph, and he said what can happen, he said, is if you have had COVID-19 naturally and recovered naturally, then your body has antibodies, and they're searching for that virus. Now you go and you're forced to get this vaccination. You get the vaccination and it sends instructions to your cells to produce the protein. As soon as your cells start producing the protein, your antibodies that you have from having the virus naturally start attacking the cells, which can create an autoimmune disease. That's straight from a doctor's mouth. That's not from my mouth. I'm not a doctor, like I said, and I'm not a scientist. But I can retain information pretty good, and I can understand information pretty good. And from what he said, there's no doubting in my mind that this is a gene therapy. So anyone who disagrees with that, I mean, Dr. Brian Bridle, he actually said straight out, he would challenge any of the scientists the government has on payroll right now to a public debate, live on the air, about this vaccine. Because that's what he does for a living. He makes and designs vaccines, and he said from his mouth, this is not a vaccine, it's gene therapy. So leads us back to this. I'm not anti-vax. My son's got all of his vaccines up to date. My little girl has all of her vaccines up to date, and I had mine. But if this is not a vaccine, and they had to change the definition of vaccine so it met the criteria, why are we being forced to take a vaccine? I mean, it's fundamentally wrong, and they know that. And that's the reason why they're trying everything in their will and in their power to try to make it so. And if we all comply, then there's no fight, and they win. Which is what makes me happy to see every face that's here today. Because at least I know that there's people fighting just like me. Fighting for your friends, fighting for your family, and fighting for your fundamental freedom of conscience. Now this mic's going to be open to people who want to come up here and have a few words today, tell your story. There was a man that came up here last week, his name's Dana. He had an incredible story to tell. And when people relay their personal stories with what's going on and how it's affected their life, I think that it really touches home, because it adds a level of, personal input that we're not getting. When you're online, just like I say, on Facebook, being a spectator for the last 16 days has opened my eyes to how mean people can be. Someone gets up there and expresses how their daughter got sick after taking the jab. And they're like, oh, well, that's only one person in this many million. But how come when they talk about COVID, one death is too many? When they talk about COVID-19, they always tell us one death is too many. But still for all, people can die from the vaccine and nothing said. That's right. And they're not even going to put it out on the airwaves because it destroys their official narrative. I tried to get myself an antibody test. Apparently they were doing it in Springdale for a while, and I was told when I called that no longer doing it. They're not allowed. So that tells me right there that they're trying to sweep it under the rug. I mean, I wanted an antibody test because if I have antibodies, I have a leg to stand on. I can say, listen, I got antibodies. My immune system's going to take care of this. It took care of it once, it'll do it again. And so if they're going to try to stop us from even getting antibody tests, like I've questioned this from the beginning. There's two things I questioned. I said, how come with the amount of hospitals that we have in Newfoundland, how come they didn't make one hospital specific for COVID-19 patients so that all other hospitals could run at the capacity that they were used to running at? All elective surgeries and procedures could have been taken care of. But no, they destroyed the healthcare system and tried to shut it down pretty much. And now we had one of the largest security breaches for public health in all of Canada, right? And it was through the vaccine passport porthole, apparently. So, if we can't trust them to tell us the truth, we can't trust them to manage our private information, we can't trust them to be transparent when they ran on transparency, how can we trust them with a vaccine that we know nothing about, that's never been tested on humans until now? We are, or the people that are taking it, are the guinea pigs for this test. So how can we trust them? There is no trust. And if you can't trust them, then, like I say, there's nothing else that needs to be said about that. They're just not trustable. They have lost their moral compass, and I'm done. I'm done listening to them, and I'll fight them with every breath that I got until the last breath I have. And I hope that everyone stands with me in that, because, I mean, again, we're losing our fundamental freedoms over something they have made political and then tell us not to be political about it. They say follow the science time and time again. How many times have you heard that? Are you sick of hearing it yet? Follow the science. But science has never screwed up. I got one word: thalidomide. One word: thalidomide. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, that was a vaccine that they were giving pregnant women for morning sickness back in the 60s that ended up where the children were being born without limbs. I mean, science never screws up. Follow the science. Trust the science. And again, I trust the science. I just don't trust the scientists that the government pay to tell me to trust the science. Anyways, for anybody who wants to have anything to say today, come up and talk to me and let me know what's going on and what you got to say, and we'll have a chat about it, and you can get up and have your piece, because I think everybody deserves to have it. I'm done hogging the mic now for a bit. So everyone, enjoy your day.
Woo! It's lovely to see you all here. This is what we call love. Yeah! It's a show of love and power that this government, the elites, have no weapons against.
Exactly!
It's the only weapon that we have. And that's why we have to develop the inner ability to grab and allow our spirit within us to heal us together as a community, and to be strong and to back each other up. You only help yourself if you help the other.
Amen.
That is how, because when you help someone else, eventually it comes back to you tenfold. Okay? Don't count what you give. Appreciate what you receive.
Woo!
I'm not much of a speaker, but this is the first time I get in front of on a mic, and I'm shaking like crazy. But I mean, I feel comfortable being here with you. Okay? You guys are giving me that love back.
Love you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a story to tell you. You'll have to be patient because I'll try to shorten the story so that it doesn't bore you to death. But after the story, I want to relate it to something. I'm not sure what, but it'll come to me. I can't plan a speech because then I forget everything. Okay? So here's the story. Moses and Jesus were on this rock for days, looking over the sea. And they were bored stiff and had nothing to do. Moses says, why don't we take the barge and go fishing? Jesus says, well, being bored here or being bored on a barge, it wouldn't make a whole lot of difference. I could rather stay here. Save us the trouble. Moses relentlessly finally got him to agree to go for a barge ride and try to go fishing. Anyway, they're out in sea for a while. 5-6 hours goes by, no catching. Everything's dead. Well, there, Jesus says, well, I told you I'd be bored on the boat as much as I was on the rock. Moses says, well, we have to trust for what is coming. Jesus says, well, a couple more hours went by and Jesus says, okay, I got an idea. I'm going to try to walk on water. I used to do it all the time and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Moses looks at him with a weary face and he says, Jesus, that was a long time ago and you're out of practice. I don't think you should go out there. Jesus says, well, I'm tired of this boredom. I got to do something. So he goes out over the edge of the boat and puts one foot on the water. He says, oh, that feels pretty comfortable, Moses. Moses says, be careful. Jesus puts on the other foot on the water and he says, hey, this is really looking like it's working. Moses is still worried about him. Jesus finally lets go of the barge with his hands, and then it's look, down. He's starting to go down and down and down. And then as his head goes at the water, Moses, being the strong man that he is, reaches over the barge, picks him by the scuff of the neck and whips him back into the boat. Jesus is there all soaking wet, and he doesn't know what happened. He can't understand it. Moses says, I told you you shouldn't. Why don't you listen? Well, Jesus says, I was bored. I had to do something. Moses says, you know what? You got to realize, Jesus, that was over 2,000 years ago. And that was before you were crucified. And now you got 2 holes in your feet. Now, there's a moral to that, okay? Right? People who don't listen to the other, who is trying to help them, they are the Jesus in my story. Okay? They're not evil people. Okay? They are just like anybody else. And they need our help. So, be compassionate, be understanding, be caring, and be loving to all of them, to everyone. Try to love your neighbor, the neighbors that you don't know, as much as you love your family circle. That's the level of love that you got to pull out of yourself and give. And I want to thank you all for listening to my bullshit with conviction. Now I got another announcement. We have a